What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. What we're going to be doing now is we're continuing on the LML Duramax, the head gasket replacement, but this will be the CP3 version right here that we're going to be doing the conversion on it. And this is what this video is going to consist of, and I may even throw the head studs in on this video as well. Haven't decided yet, but if it does, it will be in the description of the video. But like I said, this is the CP4. We're going to be putting the CP3 back in this. And since the CP3 does not need to be timed, you do not have to put this in time to remove it. If you want to, that's perfectly fine and up to you. But I'm not going to do it just because it doesn't need to be timed up on the CP3. But to remove this, there should be 4 hold down bolts on it. Should be right here, here, there, and there. The bottom one on the passenger side does have a bracket on it, but these should be 13 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set you up somewhere where you can watch this. Don't really have a great place for y'all, but this should be fine. Like I said, these aren't like extremely tight or anything. And with everything out of the way, should be fairly easy to get to it. But we do have an adapter plate, and I will show you some of the instructions that come with it. For the time being, I'm just going to set these bolts in the valley of the engine. But like I said, this does have an adapter plate for the CP3 because CP3 was a 3-bolt mounting system, I believe. That's if I remember correctly. I haven't gotten it out yet. It's just been a while since I've done a CP3 change or any of that, because they don't have near the issues as the CP4 does. And the bottom bolts are longer, by the way. But like I said, I didn't time it up. There is a window to time this up if you're wanting to do that. Switch hands with y'all. That one's still a little tight. I can get my ratchet to go in there. I think I can already see it starting to pull away. Yes, I'm trying to do this one-handed, so it's a little awkward. Come on. There it goes. She's coming out now. I'm going to keep the bracket on this one just so I know which bolt it goes on. Alright. Now let's see if we can get her to come out. May have to set y'all down while I pull on it a little bit. Alright, there's your CP4 right here. And I had to tap it to get it to come out just because it is stuck in there pretty good with this little O-ring that is right there. And the new one will need the O-ring as well for the adapter plate. But that is what it looks like. And you see it's got like a little line on the back. And then there's your 2 feed lines. Then your inlet lines and your sensor and stuff like that. So we're going to take this around to the tailgate and we're going to start switching everything over, because we do have to switch the gear over. And then we need to take this sensor right here with the green connector on it, and that will just actually lay in the valley because it will not bolt into the CP3. Alright, so I have the CP4 in a vise right here. I don't have much pressure on it, and I just put enough on there just to hold it, because if you try to turn this, it will shoot diesel out of the CP4 whenever you try to take this nut off. And this nut is a 27 millimeter, so we're going to try to pull it off real quick, and we'll see if I can use the little nut and hammer trick to break this loose without actually putting a puller on it. But let's try to get this off real quick, and then I'll try to see if that works. But I'm going to film it so y'all can see me taking it all apart. Alright, so we have the nut loose right there. It didn't take much. Like I said, you probably saw it move just a hair, but it wasn't enough to hurt anything. With the gear still clamped down, we'll leave the nut on it. You hit the nut and that should have freed it up. Yeah, you can see, broke it loose. And there you go. Now the CP4 does have a keyway slot in it, and the CP3 does not, so you don't have to worry about putting it in a specific location. Let me grab the CP3. I'm going to put some rags and stuff down to hold it, and then we will put the gear on there and get her torqued down. It does have a torque spec for that, and that says to torque it down to 54 foot-pounds. As I stated before, there's no keyway on here, so you don't have to worry about getting that in a specific location. We did wipe it off with some brake cleaner, which is, I'm just going to kind of get the excess off. We have that on now. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and torque the mounting bolts for the bracket that we assembled. Alright. Now I'm going to put this back in here. And try to get this torqued down as best I can. Like I say, we have this set to 54 foot-pounds. We're going to see if we can get it to torque down. Hopefully she doesn't move on us. Got it at 54.3. I'm going to do it one more time just to, yep, to 54.9. So pretty much about 55 foot-pounds is what it went to. So that's torqued on. Everything is good. And like I said in the instructions, it said you will not have as many threads coming through the nut, but it shouldn't be an issue. Now that this is all back together, we can install it back in the truck. Something I had to do just now was move the adapter plate because it was in the wrong orientation. And I just referred back to the original one because the first time I looked online and to see what other people had done as far as that and tried to get like a torque spec, but the other person put it on the way I had it the first time, and I think that they probably moved it as well after they found out it was in the wrong location. So just wanted everybody to know that the widest portion of the adapter plate goes up towards the sensor and the feed lines, and if you have to rotate the gear once you get it started, you can go in through where you your oil fill spout is and you can rotate it. but I got mine seated in fairly easy actually. I pushed it a little bit and I put some wheel bearing grease right here around the O-ring just to make it slide in, and it slid right in, no problems. Now we're going to torque it down, and the bolts that attach it to the engine torque to 18 foot-pounds. Alright, so what we're going to do is start putting these head studs in. And if you look at them, on the top of them it has a Allen portion, on the bottom it's flat. So you're going to put them in with the flat side down, and it's just going to go in each one of the holes, but put a little bit of the assembly lube on the threads of them, and you're just going to screw them in hand tight. You're not going to go any further, because once you start applying torque to the nuts on here, that right there will actually start to tighten them, and it will start to stretch the bolt as well. But make sure you put some assembly lube on each one of the threads. So that's about what you want to do to the threads, and then you're just going to put them down into the block and thread them in. Like I said, you're just going to go hand tight, and that's it. As you can see, I got the head on the driver's side, and to do this I ended up having to take all the head studs back out except for on the top row. I had the front two on the top row, and then the front two on the front, and then I put one more right here on the bottom, and then it slid on. The rest of them kept it from going down because it was hitting over here, but you can thread them all in by hand except for that one right there. And a little trick that you can do is take one of the nuts, thread it onto the stud, drop it into position where that stud goes, and it'll just sit inside of the head while you lower the head down. That way it doesn't you aren't trying to hold it and put the head on at the same time. So the nut, I actually hold it in place. And as far as the head gaskets go, they are labeled left and right, and it does have a thing saying this side up, as you can see right there, that is an R, and then on the back side right here there'll be an L for left. And if anybody doesn't know, left is always looking towards the front of the truck, will be the driver's side. As you can see, the plug is in, and that's all it is, and it's a lot better than having that pipe come out, which gets in the way of everything. So that there's going to make install a little bit easier, just because it gets that pipe out of the way. But that's what it looks like after it's installed. Real low profile, not in the way. Another thing I was going to show you is I put this in place right here, and there is a metal line that goes to your fuel rail onto this port also, and it goes something like that. It's going to go onto the fuel rail right there, and it's going to be somewhere around that area. But we have the return in. It's not tight because we don't know what position we're going to need it in just yet. And then I put in the 1/2 inch feed line right there, and just remember, it always goes in towards the right beside the sensor right there, or the filter. But now we got all this in, we're just going to torque the head down, but I'm going to put the other head on and do that head just because there's more room, and I can actually show you that one. So I'm going to stick this one on first, and then we'll come back and do the passenger side. And on the passenger side, you should be able to actually put the manifold on and put it on with everything together, so you don't have to worry about that. I have this head on now. I did torque it down, but I'm going to show y'all how to do this on the passenger side head, because it is a little easier to show this one because there's not as much stuff in the way. And also on this back corner bolt over there, the one that you have to put in the head as you put the head on and take it out. The thing that I did on that was had to use a shallow socket right here. You can get this one in a serpentine belt toolkit. It is just enough to get down in there with a ratchet to do this, because I'm using a 1/2 inch torque wrench right there, and that is a 3/8 drive, just because it is a little less bulky to get down in there. And I have an adapter right there, as you can see, so it does put a little bit of height on it as well. But that worked out about perfect. It got down in there and let me torque everything. But the torque sequence is right here. Basically, you just start in the middle and work your way out in a circle. And the M8 bolts, I do those last. I don't do them in sequence with the head. I've always done this on these Duramaxes, and I've never had an issue with it, you know, blowing the head gasket up there or any of that stuff, because the majority of the pressure is coming around the M12 bolts, because that's where all the cylinders are, and the other ones are just up there pretty much to help hold down the top portion of the head gaskets around where the push rods go. But I do these torque sequences and steps, except for the M8 I just go straight to 25 foot-pounds, just because it is such a low torque rating. But the M12s, what I do is I go 42, 85, and then 125. I do them in 3 sequences, just because I don't want to torque it all the way down to 125 at one time. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to lube up the studs. This is what I'm using right here. The packet that they give you isn't quite enough in the kit, so I always like to keep some of this on hand, just because it is ultra torque, like a high torque friction material. But this stuff right here is only about $10 for this tube. You can get the big can of it, but it is about $40 for that tube. I can get this to open up. There it goes. And what we're going to do is just put a little bit of lube around each one of them, kind of like that. But we're going to put some around each one of them, then we'll stick the washers on and just put a tiny bit on the thread portion of the nuts. The M8s are a 10mm 6-point or 12-point, and then the M12s are a 16mm 12-point. But let me put some lube on all these, get the washers and nuts started, and then I'll show you how I go about torquing it down. I got all the bolts in, even the M6s or M8s I mean. I got those in, and I have these ran down just with the ratchet just till they touched. And if you can see, we got it at 42, and then what we're going to do is start right here, and we're going to go from here to there and just work our way in a circle like this until we get all the way to the end. And the very last bolt you should do is this one right here. That should be number 18. But I'm going to go ahead and start torquing these down. Move that out of the way. And if you want to, once you get to the final portion where you're torquing it down to 125, what you can do is start putting like some markers on the tips of the bolts to remind yourself of which ones that you've already torqued down. And as you're torquing these also, you will feel them kind of feel like they slip. That will be the actual stud starting to engage into the threads even more into the block and starting to pull down on the head. But like I said, we have 18 of these to do, and I'm not going to bore you with all 18 of them just because that would be very monotonous and boring. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and torque all these down, and whenever I get to the final one, I will come back and I will show pretty much probably like the last 2 bolts that I'm going to torque down to 125 foot-pounds. Like I said, I go 42, 85, then 125, and that way we can get an even torque pattern on this. But let me finish this, and then once we get through, we will come back and I'll show you the last step of it, and I'll show me torquing these right here down. I'm on the last big bolt now, or head stud, and I don't have it tight all the way. Like I said, I'm just going a little bit at a time, and I double checked all of them. Go over them like 2 or 3 times just to be safe. Alright, so roughly the torque was 125.7 on that one. But now I got to put in these right here, and we're going to go back down to 25 foot-pounds. And go back over them one more time just to be safe. Alright, and that is pretty much putting the head studs in on one of these. We are going to clean off the head where the valve cover gaskets go. This was probably going to conclude this video, because the next video will be pretty much everything put back together, how the lines are routed for this CP3 conversion, and going over pretty much torque specs and anything that was anything that was difficult to do while I was doing the job, because you know, putting all this back together, everything doesn't exactly fall right back into place. So there's going to be some hiccups along the way, but like I said, this is going to conclude this video. This is just a CP3 install, where the lines go, which fittings go where, and the torque specs and how to put the heads on. And I did put the passenger side head on with the exhaust manifold on there. You can do that. There's enough room to do it on this side. On the driver's side, it is not enough room to do that with head studs. But if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And until next time, y'all have a great day.